The offseason is well underway, and we here at Locked On NHL Game Night are tackling the toughest questions with our favorite local experts.
Tonight, we venture north of the border up to Ottawa to check in on the Senators.
Already a playoff squad. What do the Sens need to do to take it to the next level?
We'll answer that question and so much more as we welcome a pair of Sens experts, Ross Levitan and Brandon Pillar, on this summer edition of Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before, only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hello there, hockey fans, and welcome to, for the first time in Locked On NHL Game Night history, little quad box action. I'm one of your hosts, Cam Stuart, a sad Boston Bruins fan here on the Third Coast.
And I'm Tyler Feldman, a lifelong Penguins fan, born and raised in Pittsburgh, but currently loving life in Austin, Texas. Cam, look at these two good-looking gentlemen beneath us. Gosh, and they're north of us, geographically speaking. Yeah. Ross Levitan, Brandon Pillar, Locked On Sens, joining the pod tonight. Special welcome, guys.
Appreciate you, boys. Really excited to be here. Love what you guys have been putting out here on the Locked On NHL channel. And yeah, we're feeling really good after a step in the right direction last season for Ottawa. So it's about how do you build on that and just start the way that you need to. Because after the All-Star break, or should I say Four Nations, Ottawa had the fifth best record in the National Hockey League, but the lows of November have been with this team for like 5 years. So we're still a little anxious, but pretty confident with the way we saw this team finish the season.
I remember Gordon Lightfoot talking about that a little bit. Something about the Gales of November. Also, Ross, do you have to tag in Brandon for him to talk? Is that how you guys do your dynamic? Or
no, we actually often get comments, though, on our interviews. Why do you guys never talk over each other? We're experts at the side chat. And all we say is me. Me means the other guy, all right, just shut up.
Yeah. And I try to hold on the mute button. That's like my little notification to everyone being like, okay, I'll take a seat back here and then I'll pop in. But, we got four guys here, so we'll snap it around here. Not a big deal.
Love that. And look, whatever it is, it's working.
And if you guys end up talking over one another, as I just talk over Cam, we'll add some tariffs. After the pod is over.
We're going to need to add some to you right off the bat. I mean, you're already dropping Gordon Lightfoot, good Canadian boy from Aurelia.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm just trying
the biggest
to make
wannabe fisherman ever.
I'm just trying to make this as entertaining as possible. I'm just trying to make this as entertaining as possible.
We have talked a little Trailer Park Boys as well. This is our first bout with some actual true Canadian hosts. So like this is Tyler and I getting a lot off our chest, trying to bridge the gap between some cultures here. We are talking about the Ottawa Senators, who did appear in the postseason for the first time in 8 years. This past year, a little Battle of Ontario got everybody fired up, really pissed off Gary Bettman, but fired everyone else up. So as we look towards, this next step for the Sens team, this is obviously a huge step, getting to the postseason, like you guys mentioned, but it's this young core that everyone's talking about, right? I mean, obviously Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stutzle, Sanderson, Pinto, there's these young guys that are making up potentially a future Stanley Cup contender core. So, and not all of these guys are household names around the league just yet. So first question to you guys is, who is going to make that big leap this year? Maybe it's just Brady Tkachuk for a full 82 again. But like, who is going to really take that leap into, this kid's a stud and we haven't talked about him enough?
Well, there's a couple different directions we could go. So I'll take one and I'll let Ross choose the other path here. But it might sound funny to say the guy that led the Ottawa Senators in points is going to be a guy that takes a big leap. But Tim Stutzle has a lot more in his bag than 79 points. And that's not just me saying that as an ecstatic Sens fan. He's got 90 points before. And not just the points, but where we're really looking for Tim Stutzle to improve is the goal. This guy's got his goal scoring, rather. This guy's got such a good shot, but he is obsessed with passing. Like so many times, Tim Stutzle will pass up a great shooting opportunity, and you're like, come on, Timmy, just shoot that. He had 39 goals 2 years ago, only had 24 this year. And even his shots in general were down big time. Only 162 this season, 192 the year before, 228, and then 176. So his lowest, other than obviously that first shortened year. So we need Tim Stutzle to be shooting the puck more. And I think now that the Ottawa Senators have bolstered their top six a little bit, adding Fabian Zetterlund, adding Dylan Cousins, you hope that that'll help him overall. But I really think that Tim Stutzle is going to be above a point per game player every year moving forward here. I mean, 79, pretty close, but Timmy's got more to give.
Yeah, I think Tim Stutzle is a great answer. And what he lacked in that superstar point range, he made up for being one of the best defensive centermen in the National Hockey League. I think oftentimes fans from around the league look at Tim Stutzle, they see a dynamic offensive player with great agility, loves to hold on to pucks in the offensive zone and make that extra play. But what he also did this season was go up against the other team's top players on the road. And I think that in particular, he showed that when he's on the ice, they were giving up a whole lot less. And that hadn't been the case in years before. The line that stayed together for the majority of the last 3 seasons when healthy has been Tim Stutzle, Brady Tkachuk, and Claude Giroux. Neither Claude Giroux or Brady Tkachuk are necessarily the fastest players. They're great players, but they don't bring that pace. So Tim had to learn to be that first guy back all the time. And that's exhausting as a guy who 2 years ago averaged over 21 minutes a game. Under new head coach Travis Green, it was a shade under 20 minutes. He was taken off the penalty kill, where I think he did a great job, but they want to save his legs for 5-on-5 and to be a power play guy. On the Senators really relied on their power play at different times last season. So I agree with Tim Stutzle being an answer there. And before I give mine, like, what's the perception of you guys watching the league as a whole of a 23-year-old Tim Stutzle?
Tyler, you want to take that one? You want me?
Well, I just think the way he plays a game across the entire ice, anytime you have a guy who's able to play that position and then get back and be that defensive presence as well, that kind of balance, I don't want to compare everyone to a guy like Sidney Crosby, but a guy that young who's able to have that balanced of a game at that age can only give you hope. And Brandon, to your point in picking him at that age and 79 points, yeah, there's a much higher ceiling. For me, though, I'm more curious about maybe a guy already on the team who is flying under the radar, who, if he can get to that next level, helps this Senators team be at the top of that division next spring.
Pelsey, no pressure. Yeah, I better pick a better one than you.
Good luck. I have a guy in mind that I think you should go for. Let's see.
All right. The last thing I want to say about Tim Stutzle, just because this is a more U.S. audience, and I feel like there's a narrative that Montreal Canadiens fans in particular and Detroit Red Wings fans who are jealous that Tim Stutzle didn't follow them at 4th overall in the 2020 draft, is that Tim Stutzle's a diver. The European, soft, he goes down easy. I think it's the funniest thing in the world. When he was young, I would say he had Bambi legs, where he was so fast and he can stop on a dime so well that he almost was, the momentum would carry him. And yeah, did he sell a couple? For sure. Did he lead the league in drawn penalties 3 seasons ago? Sure. He is so strong on his feet. And if you watch that playoff series against the Toronto Maple Leafs, Tim Stutzle had 34 hits in 6 games. He was throwing the body, being physical, and we love to see that. As I bring you to my key player to get that much better. Because if you had just talked about a young stud that I think is going to be even better than they already are, it would be Jake Sanderson. But that's an easy answer. He's already one of the premier defensemen.
I think you have him as like a 100-point scorer next year. I think you're like Mitch Marner out of Ottawa. That's what I'm hearing on the podcast is you're like Jake Sanderson is potentially going to pull a Bobby Orr season out of here.
Well, no spoilers, but we're about to do our 6th annual organizational value rankings where we kind of take into account potential, but also where they are now. And Jake Sanderson has moved up from number 3. I'll just leave it at that. He was number 3, the top tier. We call them the lottery boys, the top, the 3 picks they've gotten in the top 5, Stutzle, Tkachuk, and Sanderson in that order chronologically of when 3rd, 4th, and then 5th overall picks. But yeah, I think Jake Sanderson is elite. He's no doubt going to be on the Team USA Olympic roster after being a late addition at the 4 Nations. He doesn't get tired. And in the second half of the season, he was third among all defensemen in points. But I'm going to go with his former college teammate, Shane Pinto, because what we haven't seen from Shane Pinto is the offense that we know he's capable of. He wasn't even on the power play last year. He was begging for it, but Travis Green said, no, you're my matchup guy. You're often second in time on ice among forwards behind Tim Stutzle on any given night, but he needs you to be a wet blanket on the other team's elite player. And he did that better than I think any Sens fan could have hoped. In college, Hobey Baker finalist behind Cole Caulfield. We knew that the offense was there, but what he's done to find a role on this team, I think he's one of the most important players going into next season. So I think it's one thing to say he's going to take a step, and I do believe he will, but I think that he is kind of the X factor of this guy could make or break what the Senators are trying to do to get beyond the first round of the playoffs next season.
Couple of North Dakota Fighting Hawks taking a tropical vacation to Ottawa compared to Grand Forks. Jake Sanderson, obviously terrific player. We're going to see a lot of him, like you said, for Team USA. But going into next year, is he going to be the best offensive defenseman for the Ottawa Senators? There's a future Hall of Famer who could be back on the books if one of these hosts had their druthers. Let's talk about it next on Locked On NHL Game Night. Gosh, takes a minute to clear everybody out of the room here. But today's episode of Locked On NHL Game Night is brought to you by Game Time. You ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with your friends, maybe your family? Maybe it's game day. You suddenly realize you want to be there. You don't want to watch it on TV. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. The money you save on that, you can splurge on food at the game, drinks, merch like me, even invite a bigger group of people to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. They make buying tickets fast and simple. I like both those things. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. If you're like me, you're sick of looking through all these third-party websites, seeing all the hidden fees. Enough of that. Game Time, you don't have any of it. I never buy tickets unless it's the actual game day anymore. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, and that, of course, is guaranteed. Back here on Locked On NHL Game Night Season Preview Edition alongside Tyler Feldman. I'm Tim Stuart, joined by, from Locked On Senators, Ross Levitan and Brandon Pillar here. And boys, we got to talk about the offensive defenseman. Oh man, there's nothing I love more than a good offensive defenseman. We already talked about Jake Sanderson, an elite one here, but there's a guy who's won a couple of Norris trophies out there. Still one of the best offensive defensemen in the league, just burning holes in the pockets of two NHL teams right now. And he's a former Ottawa Senator. I know you guys had a great debate on this a few weeks ago. Ross on one side, Brandon on the other. What is the Locked On Sens verdict of Erik Karlsson back to Ottawa?
My heart says yes. My mind says he's going to come back after this contract. Whether he's bought out after next season, which is highly unlikely the way it's structured with all the signing bonus money, and the buyout would barely save them any money anyways. And Pittsburgh's already come out and through the media kind of told you that they're not keeping 50% of this contract. And Ottawa would need that. They can't take on another $10 million player right now. They've got just over $5 million in cash right now. And they're so deep up front. It's such like a breath of fresh air that I don't think you'd be looking to move a valuable asset that the Penguins would be looking for. If you look at the Penguins staff right now, Trent Mann is one of their senior advisors. He was with the Ottawa Senators for a number of years. He was the guy who drafted Drake Batherson. So don't think any conversation is going to start there without them looking for a player like that. And Trent Mann obviously knows the team and the core more than anybody other than maybe Kyle Dubas, who's a born and raised Sens fan who randomly one week a few years ago when he was with the Leafs just followed everyone on Sens Twitter, which I found hysterical as the active GM.
Did you guys get the follow there?
Of course. Yeah. I was like, what the hell is Kyle Dubas doing?
Congrats.
So then I send the screenshot in the group chat, and then my buddy Laleem's Martian sends me back the exact same one. He's like, what the heck is going on right now? But yeah, jokes aside, I think the heart wants what it wants. If you're watching on YouTube, I got an Erik Karlsson jersey hanging up behind me, for crying out loud. Like, the years he spent in Ottawa were incredible. And it's almost a shame that they rebrand to what he would have looked unbelievable in the jerseys they're rocking right now. And he never got to wear those in his career. I still think he comes back. His wife's from Ottawa. They spend their summers in Ottawa. And I do think there is a world where he is kind of that power play specialist after this contract and can come in and give you minutes and give you a lot of aura as well with the way that his career has gone. So I've softened on it. There's a point in every offseason where I convince myself that he needs to come back. So you caught me a little late here as we're nearing August. If you get me right after all the first free agents are done and you're like, okay, you're looking around, not a whole lot of guys left you can get for free, but Erik Karlsson might be on the trade market. That's when there's like a week where I'm like, I'll do anything to get him, but that week's come and gone. And I think with Ottawa adding Jordan Spence on the back end on the right side as well, there is questions about Nick Jensen, who was a great addition in the first half of the season. Didn't put up points like Jacob Chychrun, but did steady Thomas Chabot's game out. And if you look at Chabot, had his best season of the last number of years playing alongside Nick Jensen. But this ends also, and this might be more the conversation of, is Erik Karlsson ever going to be a fit back in Ottawa? Second straight year, the Senators, first round pick, they take a right shot defenseman. So we'll have to see how Carter Yakimchuk and Logan Hensler develop at the same time. But there's always a place for Erik Karlsson in my heart. I'll say that.
I feel that, Ross. Let's say the Pens do shop Karlsson and he doesn't go to Ottawa. Where would you see him ending up? Articles that I've read, they've mentioned the Maple Leafs. No. They've mentioned the Golden Knights. They've mentioned the Carolina Hurricanes. They've mentioned the Tampa Bay Lightning. Do any of those clubs fit the Erik Karlsson mold if he doesn't follow your heart and go back to Ottawa?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And it is worth noting, too, that there was a potential deal on the table with the Tampa Bay Lightning when Ottawa ended up sending him to San Jose. It was rumored that the final three teams that Ottawa spoke to was San Jose, Dallas, and Tampa Bay. I think Carolina would be a great fit. I don't know if Rod Brindamore would love the way he plays in his own end, but I think they're lacking that stud offensive defenseman. And you've got the safety blanket and Jacob Slavin that you could kind of feel that yin-yang combination. I just hope, and look, Erik Karlsson is always going to be one of my favorite players to watch in Senators history. Won the Norris Trophy at 21 years old. He was just unbelievable at such a young age, and kind of a hand off of the torch, if you will, from Daniel Alfredsson. From the day that Erik Karlsson got drafted, Ottawa traded up to get him, and then Daniel Alfredsson went up and made the pick in Ottawa, and Karlsson's looking around, licking his lips like, I got this. Then wins best defenseman at the World Juniors the next year in Ottawa. It just felt like everything took the steps that he should have been a Senator for life. But if it's not going to happen, I think that as long as he goes to a place that has a fit for him would be great, because I feel like both times he's been traded, there hasn't been a fit. Goes to San Jose, they've already got Brent Burns, another right shot alpha on the back end who likes to do much of the same as Karlsson. And isn't Chris Letang kind of Canadian Karlsson with the long hair, the smooth skating, the offensive ability?
Similar age, like too.
Both teams that traded for him, it was not a fit. So I hope that he gets to go somewhere that appreciates him, and maybe somewhere that doesn't scrutinize every defensive mistake, because he's going to make those. But
Calgary.
With all the talk about Erik Karlsson, it almost feels like he's one of the most underrated players in the league right now. Like, the way people talk is like, oh, you're going to have to pay to get rid of him at this point. He's still an absolute stud. So it's not going to happen, though, this offseason.
Yeah, it hasn't really worked out at Pittsburgh, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I understand the sentiment as well.
Yeah.
And hey, he just turned 35, and that the Ottawa Senators just love that. They now have 4 guys on the roster who are 35 or older to kind of mesh with that young core. So, Pillsy, I'm going to throw this one to you so we can get you involved here in this segment. What are the expectations around this quad of guys? Obviously, Claude Giroux resigns. You got David Perron, Lars Eller, Nick Jensen, guys who are hoping to combine to give you 30, 35 points. Like, there's not a ton of offensive room for those guys to grow, but like, what are the roles for those guys on this team with such a young core?
Well, I'll start with Nick Jensen. Unfortunately, towards the end of last season, he was kind of in and out of practices. The day-to-day tag was put on him. He was dealing with a nagging injury, and then he had a mysterious surgery in the offseason. No one's really kind of confirmed what it was. The rumor is it's a hip. Yeah, it's a hip surgery is the rumor. And for a smooth skating defenseman in his late 30s, just coming off a hip surgery, likely we're not expecting him to be ready for camp, or maybe even he could miss some time to start the season. So Nick Jensen is a bit of a question mark. That's why the Ottawa Senators went out and got Jordan Spence. So they have a little bit of insurance there. I love that move from the Sens. And then you go to Lars Eller. This guy's a fourth line center, period. I think we kind of talked about it. We were a little underwhelmed when he was the guy the Ottawa Senators signed on free agency day. Not a huge splash there. But when you think about it, other guys probably had opportunities to go to other teams for more money, more term, and more opportunities. Whereas the Senators basically had to tell any free agent coming here, look, we've got Tim Stutzle, Dylan Cousins, Shane Pinto. Barring an injury, which we hope doesn't happen, you're going to be playing majority, if not all of the year at fourth line center. Are you comfortable with that? And I think probably to get Lars Eller comfortable with that, they tacked on some good bonus money. I believe he can make up to $1 million in bonuses, 250K bonuses all along the way, 4 of them. So there's those two guys. David Perron, it was a tough start for him in Ottawa. He dealt with some personal issues off the ice, and then he had some back injuries, and then he came back, and he was an effective player when he came back, and Sens fans like the way he plays, and feels like he's got more to give now that he's adjusted, and once he kind of realized his role, not only on the ice, but in the locker room. So we're happy to have him back. It's going to be tough to find the proper spot to play him as a guy that probably you want on your third line, but the Senators have a great third line of Ridley Gregg, Shane Pinto, and Michael Amadio. Travis Green uses that line as his shutdown line. And then you don't really want Prom playing on your second line, ideally, and a fourth line for a guy like that just isn't enough for him to get things done. And then you look at Claude Giroux. This is a well-respected guy that when he came to Ottawa, that was a big deal, signing a 3-year deal. And he was the exact type of player and person that this team needed, because there was so much youth on this team, and Claude Giroux brings that veteran presence. He's amazing in the faceoff dot, something the Ottawa Senators really lacked before he got here. And just having like Shane Pinto, Tim Stutzle, and Josh Norris at the time was the guy. Having those guys be able to learn from Claude Giroux was absolutely massive. And then he's a guy that wants to be in Ottawa too. He's raising a young family here. They love it here. I don't think they were going to leave. They were able to work out a deal after a hard negotiation with Steve Staios and the Ottawa Senators. But likely we're going to see Claude Giroux in the top 6 here. Sure, he's slowing down, but he still put up 50 points last year, guys, and he was 5th on the team in scoring, and they really rely on him for those faceoffs. So although those guys obviously are on the back 9 of their careers, they each still have a role to be played, and if they can play it effectively, they're a big part of what will make this team successful.
And just to follow up quickly on that, last offseason, which was Steve Staios' first as general manager's 2024 offseason, he wanted to bring in experience. He felt like he didn't want to bite into the core just yet. He felt like they didn't have the supporting cast around him. So that's why they went out and got those older players, guys with Stanley Cup experience, and Nick Cousins. I almost said Dylan. It's getting confusing when those two go on the ice together. But bringing in a Stanley Cup champion and Michael Amadio as well. So I think it's by design, Cam, that they've got these older players in there to insulate and take pressure off. Because when we talk to guys who are in that room on Locked On Senators, a lot of what they said was there's less panic last season when they did end up making that push in March and April to make the playoffs. In years past, they would go down 1 or 2-0 in a game, and they would never come back and win. It felt like they were gripping the sticks too tight. So to have that many leaders, and Lars Eller, another guy, scored a cup-clinching goal for the Washington Capitals in 2018, I think it's kind of just that calming presence more than the impact that they'll have on the ice. As long as they don't hurt you, you're trusting in your young players that they're going to lead you to success.
Old guys having a big role, taking it easy. Speaking of which, Pilsy's going out to Atlantic, Canada here pretty soon. He's going to take a load off. Let's talk about the Atlantic, shall we? The Atlantic Division. Are the Sens actually going to move up this year? Are some of the other horses maybe a little bit hurt? Let's talk about it next on Locked On NHL Game Night.
Welcome back to Locked On NHL Game Night. Cam Stuart, Ross Levitan, Brandon Pillar. I'm Tyler Feldman. It's been fun, guys. I think it was a really fun season last year for the Ottawa Senators. Really brought some juice into the postseason, getting to play against Toronto. That was a lot of fun from an outside looking in vantage point. And 45 wins, 97 points, right there in the thick of it. My big question is, how do you evaluate where they ended last season, and how do they leapfrog the Lightning, the Panthers? What do you see from this team next season?
Well, I mean, obviously the Ottawa Senators didn't have a big offseason like we talked about. Their big free agent splash was Lars Eller as a fourth line center. But what people forget is the big moves were made at the trade deadline, right? Like trading Josh Norris for Dylan Cousins was a massive deal. These are guys in their young 20s with term on their contracts. And then you add in, I believe it was 37 seconds before the deadline, Steve Staios pulls off a deal to bring in Fabian Zetterlund, a guy that they're going to plug into their top six, and they're hoping he can get back to scoring 20 goals like he did one season with the San Jose Sharks. So those were really the big moves. And then you had injuries to Linus Ullmark. Levi Merlainen made a big splash in the small sample size he had. He's likely going to be the backup goalie. So it's a lot of those guys that you're hoping will build on some of the good progress they had last season that's going to elevate their game. Now, as far as where the Atlantic Division shakes out, I would say it's arguably the hardest division in the NHL. So let's start at the top. Florida Panthers aren't going anywhere. Whether they're going to finish first, second, third, or heck, even a wild card spot, they don't care. They just get them to the playoffs and they know what to do. So they could care less as back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. They could care less what position they enter the playoffs in. Ross, you seem to have a problem with that.
Well, no, didn't they only finish 2 points ahead of Ottawa in the standings?
Yeah, exactly. So
they didn't have home ice any of those series.
Yeah, and they don't need it. They don't need it. So, but I do think they're going to finish in the top three of the Atlantic. Where it is, I don't think it really matters. I think Tampa is going to find a way to finish in the top three as well. And as much as it pains me to say, I think the Leafs will take a step back, but I think they'll still be in the top three there. Ottawa, I'm hoping Ottawa can just repeat what they did this year, or last season rather, is be a top wildcard team that is pushing for a spot in the Atlantic Division. Like Ross said, they were close to it behind the Florida Panthers, and be ahead of the Montreal Canadiens. That's a big one for us too here. But
yes,
I just think they need to find a way to get back into the playoffs. I don't care how they do it, because they need to be able to build on that series. Sure, it didn't start out great. Down 3-0 up against the Toronto Maple Leafs, but hey, ended up being a 6-game series. And you look at 2 of those losses in overtime at the start of the series. Like, other than game 1, those losses were closer than it might have appeared on paper and at the end of the day with the Leafs moving on. But this is a team that's hungry. Brady Tkachuk finally, as the whole, I'm pretty sure everyone except Leafs and Habs fans was craving seeing Brady Tkachuk play in the playoffs. He finally got there, and he probably wasn't 100% healthy when he got there either. So if we see a Brady Tkachuk that's 100% healthy and now has had a taste of the NHL playoffs, he's going to be ready for that. Four Nations face-off gave him a taste of meaningful games too. And then you've got players that also want a little bit of shot at redemption as well. So I think the Ottawa Senators are in a good position to build on what they did last year.
This was getting a year of first out of the way. First time in the playoffs in 8 seasons. First playoff game. They were a little horny. They took, I think, 7 minor penalties. Leafs go 3 for 6 on the power play. They win that game 6. I think it was 2-0, 3-0 in the first period. I think Marner had a breakaway goal early. Game 1, 2, 3. So Marner was producing offense in those.
Right.
But when you look at the other 3 losses, overtime loss in game 2 on the road. Then you play your first home game. You come back in the third period to tie it. You lose in overtime. Then they find a way to win in overtime. So not only do they get their first playoff win, they get their first overtime playoff win. And then they get their first road playoff win, a 4-0 shutout in Toronto. Even game 6, David Perron tied it late in the third period. It was tied with 6 minutes left, maybe even less. And they, I think, have the experience now. They're not going to be in awe the first game, looking around, the towels, everything going on, the pageantry around it. And I'd actually argue Gary Bettman would have loved that, because, I mean, it then also gets the juice flowing in Canada, as well as not having the Senators play Tampa or Florida, let's say, which would have, I think, probably been even worse than for ratings. So at least there was that juice. And everyone obviously talking about it. Ottawa and Toronto are about 4 hours drive away from each other. So it was long overdue to get that out of the way. And how about that being the first matchup, right? After 8 years without being in the playoffs, first Battle of Ontario in 20 seasons. And it's unfortunate we couldn't get it to a game 7. I think that would have been a fantastic way to wrap it up, whether you win or lose. But the firsts are out of the way, boys. And now it's the no excuses. Like, they cannot take a step back. They have to be able to grow offensively and start the season on time, because that, as I mentioned at the start of the show, has been a real problem for Ottawa the last number of years.
I would say right now with this Ottawa team, seeing how they finished last year, I look at that team as one of the few dark horses who made the playoffs, but I feel like have a little bit more stretch and would not be surprised to see them make a deeper run in the playoffs this next season. It's one of those teams for me that I have that feeling about after how they finished.
Okay, well, you're singing our music. We'd be happy to see that, man. I mean, 1,350 episodes of Locked On Senators. We finally got to a playoff atmosphere. And I mean, we did 88 postcasts as well on top of that. We didn't miss a single one. And the grind was definitely, and if we're feeling the grind, imagine Brady Tkachuk and Thomas Chabot, over 500 NHL games played, all with this organization, never having made the playoffs. So I'm with you. I mean, you can say I got my Sens colored glasses on, that's fine. But I truly believe that with the age of the core and all these players getting that taste, they're not going to want to put the plate down. They want seconds, thirds, and to continue building. So I'm excited for it. And I think that getting those players adjusted at the trade deadline, I think you're going to see a much better season from Fabian Zetterlund. Like, he's done this before. He was in the Timo Meier trade from New Jersey to San Jose, and I believe he had like 1 point in 20 games with San Jose, and then put up 20 the next season. He was off, like, the eye test, he looked great every night. He just could not put the puck in the net at all. I think he finished with one goal or two. Anyways, he had like 3 points in 20 games with Ottawa.
Yeah.
So I do
one or
think
two more than me.
there.
Yeah,
Exactly. But if he can do that, I think they'll be in good shape.
And just like to not be full Sens pom-poms, like Tyler, like you mentioned, like if you just look at the kind of breakdown of this team, you could start to convince yourself that they can be a successful playoff team. You got a Vezina winning goalie. You've got a stud number 1 defenseman that now has a better all-around decor around him. You've got a young number 1 centerman in Tim Stutzle. You've got a power forward in Brady Tkachuk. You've got some of these young guys that are hungry. You've got a shut-down third line, which we all know, making deep playoff runs. Those are typically the guys you look at and you're like, man, those guys were underrated and they were the unsung heroes. You've got the older guys that have the experience, that have cup wins, that have lots of games played. You've got a coaching staff that now has a year under their belt with a Hockey Hall of Famer behind the bench in Daniel Alfredson and Travis Green that's looking to make an impact here. Like, really, the recipe for success is there. It's not that crazy, I don't think, at least.
They're not going to send it in.
No.
Nice.
I can't let that be the last word. I can't, Tyler. I can't let that be.
I get the sense he was going for a better job.
I know.
Yes. Brandon speaking my language.
I can't send you guys off like that.
Ross is like, this is the last time I hop on with these guys. What a joke.
No way, man. We love this.
Ross is like 1,300 episodes. That's it.
That's it. Yeah.
Water under the fridge. It's all good.
Come on.
All I got to say is, I don't care how the Atlantic shakes out, really. My team's not going to be in it. Barely in the division.
Thank goodness.
But let's get another Battle of Ontario here.
Yeah,
like all you guys were saying, like, it's out of the way. Now they got to be licking their chops to get after that again. We'll be licking our chops for the NHL season to start, to see this Sens team, to see Jake Sanderson and Brady Tkachuk hopefully get a couple of gold medals, at least for half of us on the show. Thanks to Ross. Thanks to Brandon. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thanks to Tyler, too. He's Tyler Feldman. I'm Kim Stuart. Thanks to these Locked On Sens guys. Get involved in the comment section below. Let us know where you think the Sens are going to finish this year, what you think about another Battle of Ontario. And then while you're at it, like and subscribe. It's completely free. Helps us keep all of our jobs. And we will see you on the next season preview edition of Locked On NHL Game Night.